You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and to push the conversation, let's take this background report put together by Joseph Ose.
Month on month, inflation rate in Nigeria continues to increase. As at May 2024, the country's inflation went above 33.9% from 33.69% in April. Prices of goods are skyrocketing, with that of food items taking heavy toll on citizens. Many individuals and families are struggling to feed and cope with the economic situation. Though experts have blamed increase in transportation of goods to the high inflation, they suggested reopening of the country's borders for import of goods, especially foodstuff, to bring down prices. Indeed, the federal government has heeded to the advice by not just partially opening the borders, but also announcing suspension of duties, tariff, and taxes on essential food items imported through land and sea borders, such as maize, hoexbrown rice, wheat, and cowpeas. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar, who made the announcement at a press briefing in Abuja, says the imported food commodities will enjoy a 150-day duty-free import window and will be subjected to a recommended retail price. The minister opened up on government's concern over the food inflation, saying there are relentless efforts to address the food crisis. The federal government has launched the Presidential Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan aimed at achieving food security and economic stability in the country. This move is part of the initiative, as the minister also disclosed that government would import 250 metric tons of wheat and 250 metric tons of maize to supply to small-scale processors and millers across the country. There are also interventions to support farmers scale up production during the 2024-2025 planting season and engage with relevant stakeholders for the purchase of surplus food commodities to restock the national strategic food reserves. The previous administration partially closed some Nigerian borders with neighboring countries to curb massive smuggle of food commodities, especially rice, and encourage local production for sustainability. The government paraded rice pyramids in different parts of the country, showcasing impact of the policy. But has the move really stopped smuggling and attained sufficiency in any of the crops produced in the country? If the reopening of the nation's borders and suspension of duties, tariffs, and taxes on import of food items the answer to the current food inflation confronting the country? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will examine the initiative and the impact on the nation's economy.
Many thanks, Joseph Watson, for that background. And now joining us to discuss the topic, which is the food import waiver. We have with us in the studio Dr. Ken Okoha, the President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, sir. Jume?
Yeah, we also have joining us from Kaduna, a regular here, Professor Ishao Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Kaduna State University. It's nice to have you join us again.
A pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
Mr. Ken, you know, I know how passionate you are about, you know, how Nigeria's economy goes up and down, and you've made a lot of suggestions. Like when we're here in May, you suggested something like this, and it seems you've been vindicated. But what was your reaction when you heard the announcement by Mr. President?
Well, I'm not sure I am here to talk about my vindication, but I think it's important to drop that footnote that immediately I left the studio that day, I had the barrage of calls. People were bombarding me, asking me, why should I, make such a recommendation? Why should I say this on the national television? that government should, import food items and all of that. I tried to defend myself and I said, look, this is a position that any wise government must take. Else, politically, you find yourself swept over with, contestations, protestations, demonstrations, and all of that. And if government really wants to settle down and then think over the next steps, what you need to do is take an emergency step. And I think this window of 3 months, 150 days or thereabout, is a kind of emergency action which should be taken normally so that government should sit down wisely. But if we must have to tell ourselves the truth, we must also go back to the causative factors. Why are we where we are at this point? And that will make government not stay too long or longer than necessary on this particular window. Now, it will also help government to underscore what to do next so that people who are responsible do not sit down and think that we have arrived. And what are those causative factors that I must talk about? You look at this subsidy removal. What we are suffering today, whether anybody likes it or not, is unavailability of food. We don't have enough food. Let's tell ourselves the truth. And if we establish this, that's the reason why the reserves are empty. If you had enough food, government would, we wouldn't be talking about, showcasing pyramid of rice and then the next day it is not there. We wouldn't be talking about government announcing palliatives of about 42,000 metric tons that are going to bring out for several months. Nobody has seen any grain of that rice. We won't be talking about, government saying, oh, there is food, but, the problem is access. No, there is no food. And the third point is that we won't be talking about food inflation. And that's exactly what has brought us where we are today. Everybody is on his or her knees looking and sometimes begging for the food because it is not there. And therefore the price has just jumped. Price of commodities, food items essentially have just jumped so high, unaffordably. So this is where we are. And then if you look at other sectors, ancillary sectors, they have also been impacted upon. For instance, the transport sector. So my cry today is that the subsidy removal was not well thought out. It's important to remove subsidy. But before you remove it, there are certain things that you ought to have put in place. And today, what we are suffering from is as the result of the shocks on the economy, coupled with insecurity.
Dr. Okoha, you've made a valid point about the subsidy removal, but back to your point on food imports as being a wise decision. Some people have said it's a depressing, decision by the government. And of course, Dr. Adeshino, the president of the African Development Bank, over the weekend actually said that government should not be thinking about imports at this time. You can't think about import to stabilize prices. Instead, you should be thinking about how to improve food production and, do other things, in order to get your economy a bit stable. What are your thoughts about that statement?
I stand on my recommendation that what government has done is a perfect decision. What I have just said now is that window of importation is only going to create a space for government to think, sit down, think properly. Now, look at our production cycle. Where we are right now is the farming season. People are moving into the farm. And you don't farm that day and, harvest that same day. No, there's still a window, maybe about 3 months now. In the next 3 months, maybe about September, October, November, you will now see fresh yam, for instance, coming up. You will see rice coming up. Meals and over the country today don't have paddy to process. So how do you reconcile? How are you going to keep the population from this particular point to about 3, 4, 5 months? So the gestation period for these particular value chains have more than 4, 5 months. So this particular window is a time of rest. But I'm thinking also that whilst government is opening that window for importation, they shouldn't rest on their oars. The next point is to bombard, I use my word, bombard investments on production.
Okay.
Invest in agricultural production, in the selected value chains, especially those that you are importing, so that by the time that we are finishing what is available, there is harvest that will be coming out. And number 2, as the harvest is coming, you're also mopping up strategically so that the reserves will have something. You think like a Joseph in the Bible.
But a lot of people would also counter what you're saying, that we may not actually get to that point where there will be sufficient to even keep in the reserves. Again, don't forget the predictions by NIMET, flooding, insecurity in certain parts are still not gone, and all of that. So these are other factors that are affecting food production. But let's quickly get to Professor Yushua Ango now. Dr. Ken Okafor has made his point here, but I want to find out what you think about this import in the first place. Some people say that it's not that there's scarcity at the moment, it's just the purchasing power that is just not there. Like rice is in the market, but you don't have 80,000 naira to buy. So that's actually the problem with it, at the moment. But I want to hear your thoughts, Professor Ango.
Well, as you remember, myself and Dr. Ken were on this program, and he actually suggested that there should be this measure, which is to import food from outside the country. And I actually disagree with that, if you remember. Now, I still disagree. I believe, just like you said, your last statement, that there is food, but it's affordability that is the problem. And I remember your colleague then saying, how can you say there is food when it's not affordable? Now, let's look at this thing in context. First of all, yes, food inflation is a major concern. Food security is a major concern, and any nation worth its name should try to ensure that it has food security. And I believe that is more important. And I remember we also discussed during that program in May about the fact that, yes, 42,000 or so metric tons was going to be distributed by government. And in my opinion, such distribution must have taken place because at some point prices stagnated, so that there must have been an impact. The only problem is that the impact is too little, too late. It was not sufficient, to actually make a major impact on the market. I like the various measures that have been proposed because withdrawal of duty or suspension of duty for 5 months is only one of the measures. There are many other measures. The only problem, again, with that, for example, there is the suggestion even made by Dr. Ken, which was taken care of in terms of policy pronouncement, that there should be massive, injection of resources, maybe for this season, to ensure that we have, the production for this season, 2024-2025, increases sufficiently, to address or at least to cover the gaps that have been observed. Now, but in reality, the season had, in fact, is more than midway as we speak, because I have told you over and over that I'm a farmer myself. Even yesterday I was in my farm. So I know that the season, it's almost too late now for government to do anything, for this season. I mean, for example, if you are to give farmers fertilizer, most farmers have already, except in the far, far, far north probably, Most farmers have already applied their first or second cycle of fertilizer. Perhaps if there's anything left, it may be one more for depending on crop. So, and again, Dr. Ken was talking about harvest. You know, of course, for many commodities, harvest time will be in October or November. You know, that you're talking about corn, you know, especially Guinea corn, some variants of rice, but some are already being harvested as we speak. Yesterday I bought sweet potato, for example. That was this year's crop. So what is going to happen is that between this month ending and August, you know, for many parts, especially in the middle belt, there will be a lot of harvests, you know, especially for root crops. They will start harvesting for maize, for rice, you know, they will start harvesting. For some of us in the northwest, already, I'm sure by that time, some of these commodities will become available. So market will adjust itself gradually. But I want to emphasize why I object, you know, naturally to import as a solution. I mean, of course, if import is going to be a medium or a major, you know, to suppress or reduce prices, no problem with that. Because in fact, sometimes even making the pronouncement will now affect the market. I don't know what will happen, but I'm sure by this coming Wednesday, when it will be market day in Makarifima, where I come from, which is probably one of the largest weekly markets, I'm sure there may be some adjustment. You will see some adjustment in the prices, probably going down. Why? Because such pronouncements have been made. Why I why I made the claim then in May that we have food is only that is affordability that is the problem, is because you will never go to the market and that you find that there is no food. No, it's the prices that were the issue. The prices of these goods were the issue. I'm happy that part of what government wants to do, from what they said, is that they want to guarantee a kind of minimum price, you know, recommended price. I don't know what the mechanism they will adopt to ensure that there is a minimum price, but I will suggest that if anything, perhaps it would have been even better for government, you know, instead of opening this window, it would have been better for government to actually quietly import what they say they are going to import, 250,000 metric tons of maize and 250,000 metric tons of wheat, and then make this available, you know, like they said, especially to some millers, you know, that will affect the price. That will affect the market price, naturally. I remember 2 years, is it, or less than 2 years ago, during the former government, when they did a display, you know, of this, what they are talking about the rice pyramids and maize pyramids. There was a maize pyramid in Kaduna here, and that affected price. That made price to stagnate, because why? Speculators, people who have bought these things, you know, waiting for prices to rise, realize that there is a lot of capacity on the side of government, and therefore prices came down. So by mere pronouncement that, for example, government will import this quantum that they say they are going to import, we are talking about 500,000 metric tons in all, alone, that will have affected prices. And I'm sure if we had been a little bit patient, you know, with the way the market works, in the next 1 month, prices will have started coming down. Prices will come down naturally. I don't think, you know, for food security, I mean, open-ended import is a solution. It's never a solution in the long term, and in that I agree with the president of the African Development Bank.
Prof, thank you so much for your opening comments here, and we're also being joined now in the studio by an economist, Yushau Aliu, a regular also on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Good morning. I could see you shaking your head, you know, while the prof was making some of the statements he's making. And, you know, people say that, you know, this is a good move. It's to sort of mitigate against, you know, the inflation rate of food items, and that has impacted so many homes in Nigeria. I believe all homes in Nigeria can feel the pinch of what is going on. Now, 150 days can fly. Before you know it, it's over. That's 6 months, actually. We're in December recently, and now we're in July. And they say the suspension is for 150 days. What happens when the imported grains are exhausted? And from the climate report from NIMET, a lot of flood is coming our way this year too. What happens after that? Will the window be extended?
Before you extend the date, I personally want to acknowledge and then congratulate President Tinubu for opening the border and for allowing duty-free goods to come into Nigeria. I am happy that Professor Ango mentioned that it is too late to make any input for this agricultural season, which invariably will affect prices in the future, will affect production in the future, because there is no way 50 kilogram of fertilizer costing 40,000 and you expect a farmer to come and sell you at a low price. That is not obtainable at all. Two things is this. Now we have had good 8 years without importation and prices were seemingly going upward. It has not yielded the production capacity that Nigeria was looking for, because there are a lot of structural challenges to agricultural production. Flooding is one. In 2018, over 40% of rice cultivated in Nigeria was washed away by flooding. How do you close that gap? I have said it times that number. If we don't look at the population, if we don't look into, I disagree with anybody that says we have sufficient food for two reasons. One, in any community you are, let every household has purchasing power to go to market. You will not see that food again. All the food that you see. And speculators also are not helping matters. Even when Professor Akinwumi was faulting the federal government, I remember he was Minister of Agriculture during Goodluck Jonathan. There was a percentage of import. That percentage of import is just to augment the domestic capacity need. And that is why price was stable at that period. But since we removed that temporary measures which are augmenting our production, bandits chase away farmers. Flooding took away what we produce. Not only that, a lot of incentives that are targeted for agriculture in trillions disappeared without going to agriculture during Buhari administration. So now, from experience, Professor Ango mentioned that food is coming from the Middle Belt. Middle Belt starts from Abuja and Nasarawa State. On Saturday, I followed from Abuja to Kefi. There was a place, market, in between Akwanga and Lafia. Whoever that is boarding that road knew that you can have any volume of yam at that point. It was empty. How can somebody tell me that we have sufficient food? Professor has forgot a lot of issues. There is a farm in Nasarawa in Doma that are cultivating rice, but they are exporting it. There are rice production centers in many parts of Nigeria, but they are being exported. Our cassava is exported. Our ginger is exported. So, all this export is creating shortages in the local markets. And now speculators, because they are guaranteed, they have tested in 2015-16 that the border is closed, and then speculators emerge. Where he is coming from, Makarfi, there are speculators that are buying and hoarding. In Giwa, there are people that are buying and hoarding. In Kano, there are two centers, they are buying and hoarding. In Saminaka, I was there. There are stores where they are hoarding. All these are speculators, and they are taking advantage. Let me be precise. All economic principles are under assumptions. If those assumptions are not met, don't go to protectionism. You are just protecting. Who are you to protect when the entire nation is telling you that they are hungry and you are saying there is food? Where is the food? Look, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must be commended for taking this bold step. I am from the north. Let me learn this issue, because it's an issue that is affecting general price level. How can a rice that is produced at 40,000 naira for 50 kilogram of fertilizer, that is one input, transport cost, other insecticides, pesticide, whatever, even the cost of hiring land has doubled. Yes. Do you understand? Yes. So The price of 50 kilogram production of rice produced in Nigeria is above 70,000. I bought one recently. Look, we have a mill. Who the internet? Who the rice? Right, last week I was in Federal Ministry of Finance trying to clear goods that we import, boilers, for us to continue production. There is no paddy. All this expansion we want to make, there is no paddy. So there is need to understand the concept of food security in relation to price, the concept of food security in relation to affordability, the concept of food security for the life of the nation. Because who are you protecting? Are you protecting agri sector, or you are protecting the Nigerians in this manner? These are issues that are clear.
So many issues usually you have raised, but of course, listening to the president of the African Development Bank and of course quoting him, he says that it's only when you produce that you can reduce pressure on the foreign exchange and create jobs. Now, with this importation, how does that affect that? And then I would like you to also speak concerning the dry season farming, which was much publicized last year.
Then we are only producing less than 10%.
So are you saying the country lacks capacity to produce?
We lack capacity. Former Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, we have 90 million arable land. Less than 5% is older cultivation. And for the ADF chairman, Africa Development Bank chairman, why don't he advise government on importing PMS? Why are we importing? They have spent several years. What effort have they made to assist Nigeria to produce PMS, which is a major determiner of all prices in this economy? I am calling on Akinwumi to look into our own productive capacity from what the economy always remain. Let us be frank. The governors, the state governors, the presidency, that the federal government and the local government are all waiting for revenue from crude oil. But we are not refining. And Africa Development Bank has not for once told Nigerians what we are losing from sourcing the exchange rate, not only sourcing the exchange rate, spending over 20 billion in maintaining moribund refineries. These are the challenges that have crippled the economy, crippled the consumers. Who are these consumers? Let us be precise. I am very passionate in Nigerians. I was a farmer. Whoever knows Galemo Farms Limited in the 80s, we produce more than 5,000 bags of maize. We don't pack them. We leave them in bare floor until market comes. Why? Because there are incentives. Agric was used to pay my school fees. No. I am passionate on agriculture. I want agriculture to be protected, but there should be the right measures to develop our agriculture. But in the meantime, as you rightly pointed out, we need to stabilize prices. CBN fails. Dangote cried. I have been crying for NPR for over 5 years. In this program, Professor Biden, I wanted to even question my integrity of understanding economics when I was debunking the sporadic increase in NPR in days, 90 days, or in 30 days you increase by 400 basis. This is not helping growth at all. But let me answer you. What comes after 150 days? It depends on the efficiency of the Federal Ministry of Finance, the efficiency of the Custom and Excise, the efficiency of Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and the watch list by Mr. President and his coordinator in watching the efficiency, because there is no any magic. Nigerians don't have food, because if you don't have money, look, in economics we are always talking about effective demand. When demand is mentioned, we are speaking about effective. That is demand that is backed by the ability to pay. If sample is going to make micro sample here, people in the studio are looking for breakfast, all of us. Then people that are also listening are also looking for breakfast every day. So what are we talking about? The president has taken the bold step. We are protecting the Nigerians first before protecting any industry, because we failed to protect the major income earner of the economy, which is petroleum sector, by producing locally.
that will solve a lot of issues.
Oh, Isha, you've raised a wide range of issues here, and I can understand your passion, being a farmer and knowing how it was then and how it is now. Mr. Ken Okoha, Mr. Yusha Aliu said that food security for the life of the nation. That means the life of the nation depends on this waiver that the president has said it is going to happen in the next 6 months. But still, analysts are saying that this is not enough. Something else must be done. What do you think?
Okay, now, I'm so happy that at least I have a voice who understands that food is not available, that we are deceiving ourselves. If food is available, price. Anybody who read economics would understand that this is a simple theory. If food is available, the price will crash. But this time, and I'm happy he gave instances. Take a drive to Niger State. Along that road, you will see yam tubers everywhere. You see tomato, you see
pepper
and all of that. Do you know, was it last 2 weeks or so, I traveled to Mina. We were stopping from one point to another. All those kiosks and all of that by the roadside where they used to, sell yams, not even one tuber of yam did I see to buy. I have these women who go to Lambata to buy yam. Many of them came back empty. Is it that I was asking, look, why didn't you buy? They said, no, they didn't even see. Some of them stayed for 2 days. Had to come back. Who's saying that food is available? It's not. Now, coming back to what the government has done and what the government should do. I also think that now that the federal government has taken this decision, let's understand that this is just an emergency window. We are not saying that this is going to continue. No! It's a measure. It's even allowed in the WTO, concept. You open the window and then you create what they call quota. A measure, and then use tariff to back it up. And that's exactly what they are trying to do. The government has tried to do. Import and then create some waiver window on the tariff to support that, so that lives of people first will be assured, will be guaranteed, while you are now looking at other options. And I know you are itching to say something, but just a moment. The second thing is now to look at the control measures. I spoke earlier about government settling down, creating this particular measure, but then the control measures are now in the hands of implementers of policies. And this is enforcement.
That's something else I want you to explain.
Where the customs are, you have a responsibility now. This is government policy. It's a directive. Can we have the assurance that customs will let go these goods and not create impediments?
Yes.
Bottlenecks.
Not create bottlenecks over there that will put a clog in the wheel of the entire process. And then we'll go back to square zero.
What about the demand for forex?
Number two, that's where I'm coming to. Can we have a CBN that will now look at this window and say, look, now that government has made this pronouncement, we need to support it up. We need to back it up with the funding window, the forex window, so that anyone who is importing must have express access to forex. Number three, can we have the state governments who will not sit down like emperors and wait for Abuja money, and now begin to look at the window of putting investment now that this one is coming? Because this, what the president has done for now, I'm not a fan of Mr. President. I mean, I make it clear. But what he has done is looking at the future and the stability of his government. Anybody who is advising him, otherwise, is trying to risk coup. Because people are crying already. I'm sure you hear every day. People are weak. People are tired. People are hungry. And they're saying it out. It is not there. It's not there. You don't have the money and you don't have the food. So what next should be done is that the governors must now begin to invest more in agriculture. Don't wait for the federal government.
Like the Niger State governor is doing.
Look at what the Niger State governor is doing. Yes. Look at what the project. I'm a member of the team set up by the Niger State government on what they call AVADEP, Agricultural Value Chain Development Project. In fact, I was with the permanent secretary a few days back, and we were talking about insurance. The mentioned issue about, the subject of flood. Yes. We're now bringing insurance into the system so that whatever they are investing is guaranteed by insurance. So that if anything, flood comes in, anything. Yeah, and the man is, pushing about 10,000 hectares of cultivation in every local government.
Dr. Ken, you see that initiative by the Niger State government is what some people say should be the way out of this situation.
That's the way.
And not import. I'll say that. And of course, I want to quote the president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. He said that food importation would erode the gains made in rice, maize, and wheat production, while the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, RIFAN, also reacted to the policy by the government, stating that the federal government should encourage rice farmers rather than imports. Now, my question is going to Professor Yushua Ango, who joins us all the way from Kaduna. Dr. Ken says that if there is food, prices will crash. But again, Dr. Ken also mentioned that there are other factors that affect how this food, gets to the consumer's table. I mean, we have production costs, for example. We have transportation costs. You have the foreign exchange at the moment, as it stands. All these are factors.
And you have to pay your workers.
Exactly, you pay workers. That determines the price of a commodity on the table of a consumer. So do you agree with all the comments made so far in the studio?
My position is clear. I don't want us to have, something that is not sustainable. I want something that is sustainable. And then we have, luckily with this panelist, we have met many times on this program. And I want to say that I also know that, in terms of populism, my views, if you have to put them to vote, the average Nigerian, will vote against me on this matter. But, to assure you, especially let's look at even the comments made earlier, especially by my panel, my friends here. Now, one of them, was that they have gone around. Somebody has gone to Niger, somebody has gone to Nasarawa State, and they didn't see yam where they usually you see a lot of yam. And of course, my namesake, Yusha, said he was a farmer, some years back. Obviously that means he's not a farmer now. You'll not see this kind of crops when it is not the season. It's natural. It's not the season. Wait 1 month, 2 months. You go to those places, you'll see a lot of it. Now, I know there is a lot of challenge, and I know that there is so much inflation in the country, and and of course the first thing, and we have also analyzed inflation on this program, and food-related inflation is high, and so it's a concern, and you have to eat, to survive. It's a concern. But my viewpoint is looking at sustainability, is looking at the long term, looking at food security. It's more important than anything. You know what? Prices, everything has doubled, quadrupled, in fact. How much, yesterday somebody was buying in my presence, what they call pure water, which used to cost 5 naira. It's now 20 naira, 4 times. That is the price of everything. That's what has happened to everything. It's not only food. Everything, the prices have gone up. The income level of average Nigerian did not increase. So naturally, there will be a concern. And the first concern naturally is about food. I understand that perfectly. And I also said that I don't think importation is a solution. But even if importation is going to be done, it should have been limited to what government said they are going to import. They don't have to open the wide gate open. Now, in the process, the problem is that you can have a temporary solution. You can have a temporary solution, even by making this pronouncement. I told you, prices will come down. Why? Because speculators who have actually these commodities stocked in their various warehouses will now bring them out because they are afraid, prices. I mean, there will be. This window will now bring a lot of things from outside, and then some producers, like manufacturers, who can afford to wait a little bit, and not come to the market to buy. So that will naturally affect prices. But by and large, what I'm promoting, I believe what also Dr. Akinwumi is promoting is food sufficiency. We are over 200 million now. The projection is that by 2050 we should be about 450 or so. If we don't learn, to actually feed ourselves, if we don't take measures that will ensure that we feed ourselves, we are going in for a lot of consequences. I've said it on this program that I didn't put it clearly, but some of them will be, once we become beggars, in terms of food, then all sorts of conditions will be put on us. And incidentally, of recent, there was a lot of debate about LGBT. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. Somebody will give you food and say, accept food only on so conditions. So number one thing we should do as a country, sustainably, I'm talking about long term, is to ensure that we are able to feed ourselves. That is most important. But I assure you, prices of everything had quadrupled. Some of them 10 times, some of them 6 times. It's not only food items that have increased, but naturally the first one that everybody will look at is food. It's understandable. But I also said that aside from the import, there are many other measures which were pronounced by the Minister of Agri. Those measures are useful, but it requires commitment. Like, for example, working together with the state governments, to ensure that they improve irrigation is one of them. They said they want to ensure that they can improve irrigation, and then they want to work with the armed forces, for example, to ensure that there is an arrangement whereby they want to see that the armed forces are given land, so that and other paramilitary organizations will also be approached. Everything we need to do to ensure that we are able to feed ourselves is desirable. And like Dr. Ken said, I agree with him in this, that whatever is being said about import is a temporary measure. But that is not what Isho is saying, that we should stop importation of PMS if we are going to support importation of food. What I'm proposing is something that will ensure that as a country we are able to feed ourselves. India, with all its population, is now number one. It has overtaken China slightly. India exports food. Now, China is not importing food. And we're talking about borders. Borders have been opened long ago. And we have said, even when borders were closed, on these programs earlier, even when borders were closed, trade was taking place, between our neighbors and us, especially in food-related items. The one that was really, that the government sustained something about was rice. Even that one was being smuggled somewhat. Now, I am looking at various measures, and I'm saying that among some of those measures that have been propounded, some of them will not be possible for this season. And even the import, what we are going to see the impact in the next 1 month, in the next 1 week, in the next 2 months, will be impact that is related to just the pronouncement, and then impact that will be affected by the fact that harvest for some products have started. That is the impact we are going to see. Otherwise, how long does it take, to import? From the time you make the pronouncement, how long do you think the cycle, between when you open the letter of credit and when the goods come in? By the time the goods come in 5 months, it will be actually all of these commodities will have been a lot in the market. I think what also was being propounded, and I like that by Dr. Ken, is that we should try to develop our capacity, especially our silos, our storage capacity. Government should ensure that instead of, because I'm sure when they gave that 42,000 metric tons, that is all they had probably. Now, of course, we had capacity for our food storage capacity is over 1 million metric tons. So that means we cannot attain that in this season, but then government should gradually build and ensure that they have that as a matter of stabilizing prices. But whatever measure we do that is temporary, we may have a relief temporarily, but it will not be a solution. And I'm not propounding this just protecting an industry. I'm saying that even for farmers, if you don't protect them, next year they don't have to farm. I know that because I'm still a farmer. I'm a farmer. Even yesterday, like I told you, I was in my farm. I know that people have come back because they saw that, like Yusha said, the cost of fertilizer, for example, is 40-something thousand. Now, with that, you know, if a fertilizer can give you one bag, and then the bag is selling at 20-30,000, you will not be motivated to go and produce. So what we should do is to protect this market, because if there's any market that needs to be protected, it's the farmer. If you don't protect the farmer will not go to the farm. And if the farmer doesn't go to the farm, you think you have all the foreign exchange, you have all the money to import. You think for a population of 250 million or 230 million, also a population that has the potential to become 400 and something million, we should depend on importation? I don't think that is. So as passionate as anybody can be, you know, I am telling you that in reality, the pronouncement will just affect the market, but it's not the best option. You know, importation is not the best option. If you are going to open the window, then government should import itself and then sell directly to some of these users, especially the major millers, you know, so that will dampen. But any measure that you do that will discourage the farmer from farming is not in the best interest of this country. That's what I'm saying.
So, Ango, you know, we seem to have conflicting, to this topic. Yusha Aliu, we have another topic that we're going to talk about, so time is sort of running out. What other interventions do you think the government should implement to aid, and scale up production during the 2024-2025 farming season?
The cost of input is very, very important. Let me make it clear. I am for Nigeria to make production, but the current economic crisis has to be managed best for the nation. Professor Ango, I want you to understand that food inflation, you mentioned prices quadruple in all sectors, in all goods and services. But I want to inform you that food inflation is the highest, above 44%. So why are we producing and then has high inflation? What is wrong with our principle of demand and supply? I am of the opinion that government, President Tinubu has taken the right decision for now, and it is for 150 days. Nobody is discouraging farmer because all farmers are already in the field and they must bring out their goods. Now, for 2025 agri season, there should be good plan in our appropriation, both federal, state and local government, like advocated by Dr. Ken. And not only that, we are passionate about this nation. We must produce what we eat. Professor Angu, I'm a farmer, but not in the farm. I said in this program, I was in the Federal Ministry of Finance, IDEC office, to get clearance to import boilers for rice. Do you understand? Yeah. So it is important to understand that it is our sector. We want it to grow. We are eating from it, and we want it to, and we want every Nigerian to afford what we are producing.
Thank you so much, Professor. Yusha Aliu, an economist. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Because of time, we're about rounding off. So I'd just like Dr. Ken Okafor to just make your last comments in 30 seconds, really. He rounded off by saying that, of course, we're going to get harvest soon. But the question will be, what would the prices be like even when it is harvest season? But your final thoughts?
My final thought is that if anybody looks at what happened during the past 8 years of the Buhari administration, you will understand why the decision to open an emergency temporal window for import of food
is the right step.
And finally, the parliament must also get up. I've not seen the parliament getting up to these issues so that our food security would become a major issue on the table of the parliament.
Okay, Dr. Ken Okafor, thank you. President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. As usual, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
Yusha Aliu, well,
thank you very much.
Yes, you came in a little bit late, but your contributions is deeply appreciated. Professor Yusha Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Kaduna State University. Thank you so much for your input. Take a break now. We'll be right back.